I'm Kevin O'Connor for This Old House. For the past several months, we have been working with Homes for Our Troops, an organization dedicated to providing specially adapted homes to severely injured American veterans. Over the course of our production, we met many servicemen and women across the country, and we were amazed by their strength, their humility, and their dedication to our country. And so to honor the service of those brave veterans, and of all veterans, we wanted to share their stories with you. Staff Sergeant Joe Beimfohr is a member of Homes for Our Troops advisory team and has been living in his specially adapted home since 2013.
1995, I was in high school in Winchester, Tennessee, and started thinking about what I want to do for the rest of my life.
So you joined young, I mean really young.
Yeah, I did. My grandmother, who raised me, she had to sign a kind of like a permission slip. It's okay, my grandson can join the Army at 17.
So when you deployed to Iraq, remind me what's going on in Iraq.
My job title is a cavalry scout. Our primary job is to be the eyes and ears on the battlefield for our commanders so that they can paint a picture of what we see, so they can accurately assign assets and get the correct intel on what's going on in a given battle space.
So tell me about the day that you got injured.
We had gone to a town to search for weapons. So one of my soldiers was in front of me and I was about 6 feet behind him, and that's when the bomb went off. He was directly on it when it exploded, and he died instantly and I got the rest of the blast. My left leg was blown off. They call it a traumatic amputation. I guess it is a little traumatic. I was so close to the blast that the pressure that the blast exerts splintered every bone in my right leg. So that's why they had to take my right leg. I suffered fractured hand, fractured pelvis, and my abdominal wall was pierced. So I actually had blood running out of my vest. And my femoral artery in my leg was also pierced with shrapnel.
What state of mind were you in those 30 minutes, and how conscious were you of what was going on and of your injuries?
I remained conscious up until the point I got to the hospital and they knocked me out. When I was on the helicopter, I honestly thought I was going to die. So when I woke up and I was in the hospital and I was still alive, I was just grateful to be alive.
So you eventually get to Walter Reed.
The biggest thing when you're sitting there in a hospital bed is you have a ton of questions. You wonder, what's my life going to be like? How's my everyday life going to be? Can I date again? You know, how are people going to look at me? How are people going to treat me?
Do you feel cheated? Did you feel robbed of a certain part of your life and opportunities?
I don't know. I wouldn't to say I got robbed. I certainly got denied, you know, choices and opportunities. But at the same time, my life now is something I never thought it would be. You know, you have two choices when you're faced with an injury that's life-altering. You can sit in your hospital bed and you can blame everybody and be mad and say, this is everybody's fault, it's not mine. Or you can accept it and you can move forward. So I choose to accept it and move forward.
Joe Beimfohr gave 9 years of service to the U.S. Army when an IED blast traumatically amputated his leg and left him with severe injuries. He spent a year in therapy at Walter Reed Hospital in Maryland. So after all the rehab at Walter Reed, where do you end up going?
I eventually bought a house in Virginia, and the house was small. It was built in 1956, so the codes back then didn't exist for handicap accessibility. The hallways were very narrow. One of the bathrooms I never even went into the whole time I lived in the house because the door was probably about 27 inches wide, and my chair is about 31.
It's a problem. I assume you have to figure everything out at this point. How do you cook? How do you shower? How do you clean?
Yeah. I tell guys who go through Walter Reed or that are going through that, they'll probably learn only about 40% of what they need from their physical therapist and from their occupational therapist. But the rest, they're going to have to figure out when they get out in the real world and they're on their own.
And so this house here, it's a far cry. It's a big difference from that house that was built in 1956.
You know, just the openness of it. You know, as soon as you walk in, it's open floor plan, nice wide hallways, doorways. It removed a whole lot of obstacles that were in my way in my other homes that I lived in. I think psychologically, it's when I know I'm going home and when I'm home, I know that I'm safe. I know that it's relaxing. It's not a cause of stress. It's not a cause of, frustration for me. I like to have people over. I like to entertain. And one of the reasons I like to do that is because I know I can get around my house, I can use the bathroom, I can get to everything. That's not always the case if I go to somebody else's house.
So you can actually grow old in this house. You can stay here for the rest of your life.
Yeah, that's what they're set up for. They're set up to be forever homes. And the idea is, we're going to give you this house, the community is going to help you build this house, and this is where you're going to stay. So we're going to try to put everything into it that you need for that to happen. Like you wouldn't think that, an organization, one, is going to build you a house and give you a house. Two, they're going to spend extra money on it, to make sure that it's safe for you. I'm beyond blown away with what the house has and what it offers me, and I just never thought that an organization would just give you a house and say thank you for serving.
Joe Beimfohr was a cavalry scout for the United States Army when he sustained critical injuries in Iraq. After intense surgeries and rehabilitation at Walter Reed, he received a specially adapted home from Homes for Our Troops, where he's been for almost 2 years. So this house has got a lot of adaptive features that serve you, but is there a room that's your favorite?
My garage is the favorite because it holds all my stuff. Yeah, these are the weapons for the race.
So what is the deal with hand cycling? I mean, how did you get into this?
I got into this in 2008 doing the marathons. I tell people if you can picture a traditional bicycle, this is upside down and backwards. That way when you're going up a hill, you're almost doing kind of like a bench press.
Yeah.
The very first bike ride was a 6-mile bike ride and I was exhausted. Then a couple months later, I did the New York City Marathon. Finished that in 2 hours and 59 minutes, and now I do a marathon in half that time. I started triathlon a couple years ago, and this year I got to race for Team USA twice. That was always my goal. When I started, the hand cycling and the triathlon, I always wanted to race as a member of Team USA, to wear the colors of my country, wearing a different type of uniform, a racing uniform.
So it sounds like from the way you tell the story, you were not doing marathons before your injury.
I never even ran a 5K. I did just what the Army asked of me, run 2 miles in a certain amount of time. That's all I did. So running for fun, that's probably one of the reasons why I wasn't mad I lost my legs, because I didn't have to run anymore. Because I hated running. I absolutely hated running.
And so what is it? Is it the competitiveness? Is it the physical activity?
It's a community, and I tell everybody it's also a therapy. When I'm riding a bike or when I'm out there swimming, I don't feel pain. I still have spasms in my legs, but when I'm out training, I don't feel them at all. And I don't have any stress. I'm just enjoying what I'm doing at that moment, riding my bike. That to me is probably the biggest impact I get from doing adaptive sports.
When you were laying in Walter Reed, could you ever imagine this type of life?
I never would have dreamed I would have been an athlete racing. My life has definitely taken a different turn. Not for the worse, it's just different. You just had to adapt to what life throws at you and change with it and keep moving forward.